Today is all about what are the qualities of resilient people. Yesterday we clarified what intention is in terms of the definition, so that we're all on the same page. And now what I want to look at is, okay, so what are the qualities of resilient people? Now, many of you know me, I love to read, and I was recently reading a book about some of these amazing feats of nature, so these incredible qualities of natural products. And that I came across when I was thinking about this resilience guide was the qualities of a spider's web. So I just want to read you a little excerpt of some of the qualities of spider's web and how I think that's going to link in nicely as an analogy for some of the qualities of resilience. So compared ounce to ounce with steel, dragline silk is 5 times stronger, and compared to Kevlar found in bulletproof vest, it's much tougher, able to absorb 5 times the impact force without breaking. Besides being very strong and very tough, it also manages to be highly elastic, a hat trick that is rare in any one material. If you suspend increasingly heavy weights from a steel wire and a silk fibre of the same diameter, their breaking point is about the same. However, if a gale force wind blows, the strand of silk, 5 times lighter in weight, will do something the steel never could. It will stretch 40% longer than its original length and bounce back as good as new. Up against our stretchiest nylon, spider silk bungees 30% further. The energy-absorbing elasticity comes in handy when moths and other meals on wings come hurtling into the web at top speed. Instead of breaking, the gossamer strands stretch, giving off most of their impact energy as heat. So for me, I loved this analogy because I thought, well, this is fantastic, because the two qualities that I think we really want to key into here on what are the qualities of resilience is thinking about strength. So this ability, the strength that the spider web has and how much stronger it is, or its comparable strength with steel. And secondly, thinking about its flexibility. So it can tolerate these impacts. So almost like I see these impacts as like events that happen in our lives, like hitting us, hitting the web of our resilience. And it can take these impacts and stretch 40 times its original length, but then spring back slowly to center. And so as an analogy for me, I just think this exemplifies resilience, because the strength element is the strength of form, of structure. It can take, these weights and it can take these impacts that happen and it won't break. But the reason that it doesn't break is because of its second quality, which is flexibility. So this net is able to stretch and absorb the impacts of these moths, but not stretch so much that it breaks, but also not spring back too quickly that it trampolines, as they call it, the moths and other things that hit it. Because what we don't want to do, and I think where a lot of people misinterpret resilience, is about this hard shell, this protective shell that we just don't let anything hit us necessarily. And what I don't think is true with that is that it is the fact that these things do impact on us. They do affect us. We do have an emotional reaction and an emotional response to them. That it's part of the qualities of resilience that enables resilient people to move through and process through experiences as they happen. So when we're talking about strength, obviously some of the ways that we can imbue these characteristics is to be strong in the first place. So this is thinking about things that you can do now when maybe you're not in such a period of hardship, that you can ensure our habits and routines and practices that resource you to make sure that you're strong at all times. Because we all know when we get worn down and we're tired and we haven't eaten properly and we haven't taken care of ourselves, that we feel under-resourced, and sometimes very small things impact us quite a lot and can sort of knock us off. You have a bad day's sleep and a couple of days of not eating properly, you haven't had any me time, you haven't had any personal space, your personal boundaries have been breached, and then something else happens, and it's just like the final straw on the camel's back that just breaks you. So ensuring that we stay strong and we have practices and routines in place and habits that are going to help enable and keep us strong is the first part of it, because our strength is going to come from that place in times of hardship, so we have to make sure we keep ourselves resourced. The next one with flexibility is thinking about this ability, this stretch, and seeing that, is there ways when we're not in times of hardship that we can widen and expand our sort of area of, or zone of tolerance, as it were, that we are able to experience things coming at us, happening to us, but not be knocked off kilter by them, and develop this flexibility and widen this tolerance, this stretch that we have, to mean that we can quickly return back to centre, even over smaller things, and use those as practice runs for some of those maybe bigger things that are going to happen to us, hopefully not, but that might come along in future, and think, can we use these as practice runs to help us be better, be more flexible and widen this comfort zone. Again, it comes through exposure, it comes through practice. A lot of the people who are resilient have probably gone through things in the past. They've probably gone through past experiences. And so when it comes time that they have another, past experience, or something happened to them, they have those previous experiences to call on and remember some of the things that worked for them, and give them confidence that they can get through this one as well. And so this is some way to think about how can you develop your strengths and maintain your strengths. And secondly, what are some ways that you can improve your flexibility, improve that ability, that comfort zone, that stretch that you have, that area of tolerance that you have, to enable you to be able to bounce back and spring back when you need to. One thing I want to explain is I certainly like the analogy of the flexibility of these impacts. So when these moths or whatever hit these spiders' webs, the web stretches and absorbs all of that energy from the impact. And they're coming in at speed, and they're coming in from different directions. And so one thing I really like is the way that the web doesn't spring back very quickly, okay? It actually springs back in a very slow way. Obviously, time-lapse photography here, but it comes back to its normal place in good time without sort of rebounding the thing away. Because what we don't want to do is numb out during these situations and these experiences. And I've put a link in the show notes here underneath of the Brené Brown talk, where she talks about vulnerability, and she talks about that we can't selectively numb emotions. So when hardship comes, there's obviously an emotional response that happens with it, and part of the flexibility toolkit that we're going to gain here is like, how can we acknowledge and express and feel all of those emotions, but then how can we return ourselves back to that stable emotional state that we like to be in. And part of that is, one of the tools and one of the coping mechanisms can be to just numb out completely from the entire impact. So the experience comes in and hits us, and we just numb out to the whole emotional roller coaster that's going on. We don't express it, we don't feel it. And some of us, that's a coping mechanism for getting through hard times. We kind of just numb out and get our heads down and get on with it. What I want to sort of clarify here is that in Brené Brown's talk, when she talks about this, she talks about that we can't selectively numb. So what she means by that is you can't selectively numb emotions, bad and good. They're just emotions. So the way that your brain interprets and understands them is emotions. It doesn't really differentiate between bad and good. And so unfortunately, when you numb out the bad emotions that you're experiencing in any hardship or any period of hard times, you also then numb out all the positives. And obviously those positives are some of the things that can help bring us back to that nice state, that nice emotional state that helps us bond with others, connect with others. It helps lift our mood. It helps improve our energy levels. And so the numbing is certainly something to be considered, to consider in these situations, and think about, has that happened to you before? Because again, just imagine this net, just this impact coming in, and it's stretching away to absorb the impact, and then slowly recoiling back to center. And that slow recoiling for me symbolizes this processing of what just happened, the processing of the experience of the impact hitting us, the experience of that hardship happening. Because we all know if we numb in those situations, it's going to come up later on at some point anyway. And so it is this toolkit to be able to emotionally express through these situations, and really, coil back to that centered place over a period of time, and not expect us to have an immediate rebound and I'm fine. It's really searching out, what have I learned from this? What am I learning? What am I experiencing in this moment? And being able to pull yourself back to center and think about that. So one of the actions I'm going to give you is to think about each of these two qualities, and to think back to a time where you were really struggling, where you were really suffering, where you were having a bit of a hardship, and thinking, okay, in what ways did I imbue the qualities of strength? So the characteristics of strength. How did I show up, and how was I strong? How did I maintain my strength through that prolonged period of time? Maybe one of these hardships lasted a number of months or even years. How did I maintain my strength? What were the resources that helped me stay strong? And think about those toolkits that you have. You already have them. You've gone through something already. So you have these toolkits, you have them already. And then think about what are the qualities and the characteristics that you showed that showed flexibility and showed this ability to absorb the impact of the things that were happening to us, this stretch, this comfort zone, this window or this zone of tolerance that we have already, that when this particularly tough time came, it didn't stretch us too far out of our comfort zone because we already had a comfort zone that was quite expanded. And think about experiences where that's happened for you and how maybe you were able to use that in the moment and use that in those times of hardship. And so what we're trying to do here is just really collate a list of the tools and the skills and the hardships that we've already gone through already and how we've managed to navigate them before. And what we're trying to do is just enhance that toolkit, build that out a little bit more, have a few little extra reflection exercises. So in the next lesson, I'm going to be sharing an amazing TED Talk by Lucy Hone. And it's incredibly vulnerable, it's incredibly sensitive, and it's very, very helpful in explaining how she is a specialist in resilience. She studies it, and how her own personal life experience of this actually she had a life event happen to her where her resilience is really tested, and she says some key tips on the sort of three main tools that you can have to help you better navigate trying and heartfelt times when we both need to pull on our resilience a little bit more. So look forward to that tomorrow, and enjoy the talk.